As far as we know, the Horus Heresy book series is over. So unless there is Horus Heresy, The End and the Death Volume 4, The Aftermath, and then Horus Heresy the Epilogue, Part 1 of 5, which precedes the Scouring book series yet to be written, which leads into the War of the Beast, and I haven't even mentioned the whole Clone Horus saga. No, it's over. It says so. But if you do want to catch up on it, there's just a few books and oh no! Yeah, that's going to take you a while. These books started being written in 4th edition 40k. Remember we talk about history by what edition of 40k was out at the time? So Caesar's invasion of Great Britain was 2043 years before 1st edition of 40k was released. But the length of all of these books could give One Piece a run for its money. It went on so long that the 30k rules to play Horus Heresy games on the tabletop that were released for 6th edition of 40k, they almost had to stop there as 8th edition through to 10th edition had quite different rules and Horus Heresy couldn't keep up. So Horus Heresy 2nd edition uses a variation of 7th edition rules. But the book. I am going to spoil some of the oldest lore in 40k. Horus fluffing dies! But we have this big duel with the Emperor that the whole book series has been leading up to, otherwise the lore in the past was just, there was a heresy, it was led by Horus, and then he was killed on the bridge of his ship, and that's how the heresy ended, and also the Emperor was so badly injured that he had to be kept alive on the Golden Throne, or he's keeping the Astronomicon alive by being on the Golden Throne. That was about it. But we see the duel together, and there Horus says, "Look, father, I have the Warhammer 40,000! But lore nerds will say, actually it should be the Warhammer 30,000 because 10,000 of them hadn't been made yet. Well, that was retconned. Please don't go, I have real retcon news. From the start of the book, there were a lot of simplified reasons why not all the traitors were fully fighting at the Siege of Terra. Lorgar has a vision not just of Sanguinius dying, but of Horus, probably Horus, he thinks it's Horus, being weakened enough for Lorgar to beat him. The prophecy is more likely the Emperor on the throne, but Lorgar is reserving his forces for an attack on the Sons of Horus Legion to do a revolution on the revolution, assuming that the traitors win. Perturabo is deciding whether he's actually going to retreat or not, but he thinks that he has the way, even if he doesn't want to do it, to make himself into the perfect warp magic weapon. This is not a random prelude to a new model being released. But he still hasn't decided if he will retreat or not, and that is basically the state he stays in for the entire book. The Blood Angels go into the Black Rage as they get the psychic waves of Sanguinius dying, which will become their whole chapter trait for the next as long as they exist. But up on the ship, the Vengeful Spirit, we have a lot more lore and retcons. Valdor, who is the leader of the Custodes, he stabs at Abaddon, and this gives him the power to see into the next 10,000 years of war. And surprise, this Abaddon dude becomes a pretty big deal. So that is quite a big change in the lore. Valdor knew what would happen with Abaddon. What has he done about it? He hasn't advised anyone about the Black Crusades, which themselves were sort of retconned to be glorious successors instead of just raids that would annoy the Imperium. And just so Failbaddon stopped being a meme. But I find the Valdor knew about the next 10,000 years of what would happen in Abaddon, it's kind of an odd addition. I haven't read all of the Custodes books or the Custodes Codex lore, so if someone has and they know something about why this now makes a lot more sense, please let me know in the comments. So the Emperor comes up to Horus, and Loken, one of the sons of Horus, is there, and he says he still believes that there is good in his father Horus. He senses it. Horus is sad and cries a bit, but these are manly tears. Then Horus tries talking to the Emperor. The Emperor asks, "Why have you done this to my son?" And Horus tries to answer him, but then he realizes that the Emperor is talking past him to the Chaos Gods and basically saying to them, "This wasn't part of the deal. What's up with this?" And Horus is like, "Hey, I'm here. I did this. You know, this was me. I'm the one that's been calling myself Horus Heresy," and still that wasn't enough to tip off the Emperor that, you know, his son is planning to betray him and start a theological civil war. But we've seen kind of weird retcons before, like with the Magnus warning. That in itself was retconned. Previously, the Emperor did not believe Magnus when he told him that his favourite son was going to turn on him and declared Magnus to be a Chaos traitor, spreading lies, and so he sent Russ to kill him because Russ was the one that was closest. This was changed to be that the Emperor sent Leman Russ to escort Magnus back to Terra, and Horus changed the message to be, you need to kill Magnus. But, come on. Really? The Emperor didn't think this was so weird? If you want someone brought back to Terra, you send a taxi. Not a fully armed Space Marine Legion supported by Custodes and Sisters of Silence. But if you want to know how Magnus ended up going from a genius leading a legion to a Saturday morning cartoon villain appearing in the Space Wolves Codex, I've linked a collab I did with Paul, who is bad at stuff, in the description below the button to give me tip money. For a fraction of the cost of an old world model, you can support me for like £2 a month. We are not done with the video, this is not yet the time for you to click like and then leave. So the Emperor and Horus. Horus is trying to have a conversation with the Emperor, and the Emperor is basically saying, Daddy's on the phone right now, stop bothering me. And this makes Horus angry, and he attacks. He manages to smash the Emperor to the ground, and then hits him with lightning. You can see that there were some heavy influences from episode 6 of Star Wars. With help, the Emperor gets back up, and they fight, and they do that across time and space and all dimensions, which gets represented by a card game. So Horus has a blue deck against the Emperor's green-red deck, but really the Emperor took it from Sanguinius just so he could say, Sanguinius's deck has no pathetic cards, and then they play cards. This is what we wanted. Not a measure of weapons or their power, kind of like how the Avengers film did it, where they showed how the heroes would fight one another. We wanted card game metaphors. Writing an ending to a series this long, where we knew the ending anyway, is gonna be very, very difficult. But I think this end fight, if not already a meme, is gonna become a meme. So the Emperor has some great cards out, but then Horus plays the Despoiler card, which chain summons into the Worldbreaker card, and the Emperor's life points drop to 0. Horus then doesn't kill the Emperor, he tries to drag the Emperor to a throne to symbolically make him the 5th Chaos God. So like the Horned Rat, but in 40k. Loken comes in again and tells Horus, you've won! You really are the Horus Heresy. You don't need to be the pawn of chaos anymore. Horus, the man, should win, not Horus, the blob of chaos powers. So Horus rejects the chaos deities, and then he sees that Loken is actually a projection of sorts from the Emperor. This lets the Emperor stab him with the Athema Blade, which is the opposite to the Anathema Blade, which caused Horus's fall in the first place. Symmetry, symmetry. And the Emperor says, I wait for you, and I forgive you. Just in case Games Workshop wants to bring back Horus. Previous lore had not stated, but suggested that Horus's soul was gone forever and could never return, so this is quite a retcon. So expect to see in 11th edition Gilliman and the Lion standing around a table saying, somehow Horus has returned. Oh, and just before stabbing him, the Emperor also says, it's 40k'ing time! I can't not make jokes. It's not in my nature. So, they all teleport away, except for Loken, who stays behind. He's very sad and wants to protect Horus's body. When Abaddon and Erebus come in and ask him what's happened, he says the line, I was there. And this is a very nice callback to the very start of the series without being a full roll credits. Because we have to have something else happen first. Spoiler, spoiler, Loken is killed by Erebus. And I think there are two ways to write a good villain. You can set them up to be sympathetic so the audience can understand where they're coming from and also why they are opposed to the hero. Or you can make them so hated, so unredeemable that everyone wants them dead and will celebrate hard if they're ever killed. People like the story where Erebus has his face cut by Horus. But I felt the death of Loken was a bit tacked on, not a natural story progression. It felt a bit like the end times in Warhammer Fantasy, where there was basically a kill list of beloved characters that needed to die for dramatic tension and such. But this was done to complete the Samus arc. And all I can say is, Dan Abnett, stop trying to make Samus happen. It isn't gonna happen. This is a good story though. It had drama, it tied up a lot of plot threads, it did do some retconning or backfilling some information, which I don't think was needed, and it is a little bit over the top and silly. The bit where Horus fires a laser out of the Eye of Horus belt, that was a bit strange, but I think that really is the tone of 40k. It's grim and gritty, but full of stupid over-the-top stuff like that. But this is a good story. And it made the 40k Magic the Gathering cards canon. They can be found in the description with my affiliate links. Buying the cards through them will help this channel because the affiliates give me some money. I've been doing some lore videos while waiting for the balance patch to drop, and if they're proving popular, I'll keep doing them. So here is the collab with Paul, where I talked about Magnus, and here is a Sisters of Battle video about a lesser known order. My darlings and viewers, have a great day at the end of 30k.